With the upcoming Heart of Deimos update, we're getting the ability to subsume Warframes and make a single ability per frame available to all of them, one at a time of course. This is a crazy new level of customization and is probably a bit daunting, as it's 43 new abilities to consider for every frame, and that's just currently. So to make life a lot easier for you, I'm going to split these abilities up into categories to give you the overview you need to pick the right ability for your build. I'm the Engineer, let's solve a practical problem. And just before I dive into the nitty gritty, I wanted to let you all know I'm also streaming on Twitch on Wednesday and Sunday evenings, that's UK time. These times will vary a bit because of day jobs, they're a thing, so do make sure you drop a follow to know as and when I go live. But enough about that, let's talk helminth. Now whilst there are tier lists going around left and right, and various people giving their various opinions on all of the abilities you can look at, I want to hone in on the individual abilities that fill in certain roles. Basically, I want you to be able to look at the timestamps of this video, look at the chapters, pick out what it is you want to do, and there you are, I've got the answer for it. And if it's not on the list, there's probably not a good option for it. So watch it through, take in all the options that are available to you, and if you need a refresher or just want to check on a specific category or role that you're looking to succeed in, I've got the chapter ready and waiting for you. So first on the docket is a damage ability. Of all the ones you can subsume, none really stand out for their damage, but there is one singular use case, and that's if you have a very low strength build like with Nova or Necros. If you need an ability to do damage with that, you can use Ash's Shuriken. It deals a flat 500 damage per Shuriken with a guaranteed slash proc, regardless of the strength of the build. If you want to use the augment with Shuriken to strip the armour from enemies, you will need to keep your strength up. The 143% will guarantee complete armour removal, but if you're not looking to use the augment, no strength at all is needed to still get mileage out of this ability. Next then, for softer crowd control measures like knockdowns or slowing, you've got three options to go with. That's Fire Blast from Ember, Roar with its augment from Rhino, or Warcry from Valkyria. The first two give a simple knockdown on cast, plus a couple other benefits, while the last one gives a slowing effect, again with some other benefits. For Fire Blast, it also deals some damage, and can ignite enemies, as well as draining their armour. Add in the augment and this will also heal you and cleanse you and your allies of status effects. Roar on the other hand carries a simple pure damage buff, and Warcry carries a melee attack speed and team armour buff to go with the slowing effect on enemies. As an alternative to these three, you can pick up Mesa's Shooting Gallery to jam nearby enemies' guns while getting a weapon damage buff for you and one other ally. For harder crowd control abilities like sleep abilities, you've got a number of options to choose from. That's Atlas's Petrify, Baruch's Lull, Equinox's Rest, Korra's Ensnare, Nidus's Lava, and Wisp's Breach Surge. For all of these abilities, range will make them more effective across a wider area, and duration will allow you to maintain the effect for a much longer time. That said, strength isn't usually required for the majority of these abilities, but it does impact the looting ability of Atlas's Petrify with the augment equipped, and it impacts the damage that Wisp's Breach Surge will deal alongside the crowd control. For Baruch's Lull, Equinox's Rest, Korra's Ensnare, and Nidus's Lava, strength is not required whatsoever. Overall, for precision, quick, stealthy work, go for Equinox's Rest. If you're looking to stop an entire room at once, Atlas's Petrify or Wisp's Breach Surge will do well, whilst if you're looking to collect the enemies together to absolutely destroy them, Ensnare and Lava will do the trick quite nicely. For more of a middle ground approach with a slower to engage effect, Baruch's Lull will get the work done. For actual stealth abilities rather than crowd control, you've got two options. That's either Ivara's Quiver or Banshee's Silence. With the Quiver, you can make your allies invisible, or create a static dome for you and your allies to go invisible within, whilst with Silence it, makes you silent. You and your allies, enemies just stop hearing noises. Overall, the stealth options you can subsume aren't that great, and I think that's for a particular reason of not giving everyone invisibility, but you can still put the quiver into places if you know exactly where you need the invisibility to happen. When it comes to healing, there are a number of different options to choose from, and it comes down to the role you need and the circumstances you're putting that healing into use for. Proteus Dispensary will keep the team going in low stress situations, while also providing energy and ammo in a fixed location. It's a good all-round healing ability for the team to utilise. But if your healing needs are higher and more on the go, then Trinity's Well of Life can be cast on enemies in various locations to provide healing both passively and from lifesteal on the enemy that is suspended there to be drawn from. It's a bit grim really when you think about it. If you're only caring for yourself however rather than a team healing, there's a couple other options that become available. Hildren's Pillage will give you shields for affecting enemies whilst trading their armour and shields. Or you can use Ember's Fire Blast with its augment to give healing for every single enemy hit, along with the multi-tool aspects of damage, crowd control and armour stripping that Ember's Fire Blast also gives you. And lastly, there's Saren's Molt, which with an augment that provides you solid self-regeneration whilst you speed away from whatever's been causing you the hurt. For all of these healing abilities, strength is key, so if you are lacking in strength they will all be weaker. If you are on a low strength build, the most effective at that stage will be Hildren's Pillage or Proteus Dispensary, as whilst they both do rely on strength to an extent, they both are still workable without it, whereas Fire Blast, Well of Life and Saren's Molt will suck without strength. For armour stripping, you've got three main options. Ash's Shuriken, with the augment of course, and a bit of strength can totally armour strip a couple enemies at a time for a few seconds. It's very quick and cheap to cast, making it easy to spam, although the targeting can be a bit funky, and the armour strip doesn't connect through obstacles. Alternatively, Ember's Fire Blast has a 50% armour reduction, which is both permanent and in an AoE, but it does require line of sight. This is a flat figure, meaning no matter what your strength is, you're always going to be draining 50% of the enemy's armour, and if you cast it again, now they're down to 25%, and so forth. Similarly, Hildren's Pillage will permanently strip some armour from armoured enemies, but it does require high strength to get up to a full strip quickly. The effect is permanent and does stack with itself, so having less than 400% strength will still get a good amount of armour reduction done. So if you need a total armour strip on the budget, use Ash's Shuriken, or if you're looking just for a partial armour strip, Ember's Fire Blast will get that done. If you've got plenty of strength to work with however, Hildren's Pillage can do plenty of work across a wider area. If you want to go faster, you've got two options for that, either Nezha's Firewalker or Saren's Molt. With Nezha's ability, that gives you a flat 25% speed buff, and it has a base duration of 30 seconds, so it's pretty long lasting. If you've got a frame which either has terrible strength, plenty of duration, or really you just want something you don't cast very often, Firewalker should be your go-to. Molt, on the other hand, has a much higher base bonus at 50%, and this can be increased with strength. The downside is, the buff only lasts 5 seconds at base, so you get a very large speed buff for a very short amount of time. Tailor this to the kind of playstyle you're going for. Are you using the speed to get out of somewhere quickly or get in quickly, or do you just want to breeze through the mission that bit faster? Now when it comes to damage buffs, there are again a few options. If you'd rather run without an augment, you can start with Valkyr's Warcry, which will make your team's melee attacks substantially faster, which means more DPS in that arena. Or if you'd rather use a gun or ability for damage, Rhino's Roar will add damage to anything that you and the team are dishing out, be it gun, blade or ability. That said, if you don't want to help your allies, fine. Pick up Mirage's Eclipse for a damage buff in the light or defense buff in the dark, although you'll never really know quite which buff you're going to get or how strong it is, because the UI is actually lying to you. That 95% you see when you're running Mirage normally, it's not true. Now if you don't mind using an augment, then you've got a few other options to look at. You can use Volt Shock for electric damage on your weapons, or Oberon Smite for radiation damage. For all of these options, strength is a necessity. More strength means you get more out of it. Obviously, add in duration to make sure the ability lasts as long as possible, but all of these are reasonable durations in and of themselves, so not improving it and leaving it around the 100% mark won't be too big of a deal for you. And if you're focusing on just doing it for yourself, losing range is perfectly fine. You don't need it to go anywhere else. You're just looking after yourself. And lastly, I want to cover damage reduction. For pure reduction, pick up Nova's Null Star on a high duration build, granting up to 90% damage resistance while you still have 18 or more particles. If instead you prefer an armor buff, Valkyr's Warcry will buff your whole team's armor based on their original armor stat. It's additive with mods like Steel Fiber. Or again, if you need something just for yourself, Wukong's Defy can also grant an armor bonus, which is unfortunately getting a bit of a nerf for being too OK. No, really. Ordinary Defy on the lowest armor frames would reduce incoming damage to health by only 79%, and is comparatively worse on frames with an even higher armor stat. So it's not going to be a huge reduction if you're using Defy, or for that matter, Warcry for an armor buff. But it can be used to complement existing damage reduction abilities, to stack the two together. If you're still stuck for choice, Mirage's Eclipse will maybe give you some damage resistance, if it feels like it. Alright, so that wraps up the main categories I'd like to look at with you today. I've not mentioned every ability here, because frankly, some of them are as good as useless. Spectral Rage, I'm looking at you. A few others can be useful, but they're not going to be the top options. By all means, if you're stuck for options, look into what you've got. Just know, if it's not on this list, there's probably something better that you can work towards. I've also not delved into the helminth specific abilities, as they're not out yet, and so they still need to be evaluated. But on that note, that about wraps this all up, so go ahead and farm the frames for the buffs you'd like to see, and whichever other frame you're using. Don't forget that prime frames cannot be subsumed, so you will need to farm up the ones you wish to feed into this system. Or, if you're done with that Nidus grind, go ahead and buy it with Plat. I absolutely will not judge you for that one. With all that said though, farm frames, break games, and fight well, Tenno. 3, 2, 1, begin! We can hear Ash's ability is in place. Athlia is darting around, trying what she can, and she's dead.
I felt guaranteed win with that.